They take control of the airports, transportation, rail lines, etc., and then they cut communication so people cannot spread messages of where troops are moving, where things are happening. This is very much going to be the same exact thing when food prices and food riots and these types of things are happening.
Adapt 2030 Mini Ice Age Conversations covers changes in our climate due to a new and intensifying grand solar minimum. In the media, overlooking, downplaying, or burying cold weather changes occurring on our planet. This is in order to keep the global warming agenda steaming full speed ahead. I do this podcast and radio program because we need to begin conversations on how to adapt our food growing strategies long before 2030 as agricultural zones shift, affecting global crop output, but very few mainstream media outlets are talking about the most important issue of our time, cold weather crop losses. Our sun is going through a 400-year cycle, which has effects on our weather patterns as our magnetosphere weakens and the jet streams go out of flow. It's not CO2, it's not you, it's the sun. Are you ready to thrive in the grand solar minimum? Then join me for Mini Ice Age Conversations. I'm your host, David DuByne.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this planet. Exciting changes energetically across our solar system and on our own Earth. This is manifesting in behavior, people, society, companies, money, economy, and everything else in between. New archaeological discoveries. Ancient Mexico, they found 40 suburban-style towns that they didn't know existed due to drought. So many weather anomalies. Snow would be a thing of the past, specifically quoted by Al Gore, but overnight 50 centimeters of snow wipes out the men's giant slalom in Austria. Too much snow for a ski event. We've seen massive 120-mile-per-hour windstorms ripping through the Italian Alps. Floods in Namibia in the middle of the desert, one of the driest places on Earth, just had massive floods. The changes are all around us. Now, this all follows in right into the need to control the narrative as we move into more higher price food, crop losses, etc., explaining the timelines. Because if you've seen the black cover of the Economist magazine, 2019, the year of. Those of you familiar with the Economist magazine, generally on the front cover, they put out something very interesting as a crystal ball, if you will, into the future about how the world's events are going to unfold the next year. Now, generally, these are very well done, very creative, incredibly colorful caricatures, whatever. When you see the covers, you're like, wow, it takes you a few minutes to dive in there, half an hour to really study everything because they're so in-depth, they're so detailed, and there's so many hidden messages and meanings and yeah, it's like going through a Pandora's box inside those covers. Generally, this year, for the year 2019, it's a black cover, which makes me think the black horse of the apocalypse is the famine. Now, my whole channel is revolving around food crop losses, the sun driving our planet on multi-century cycles that affect food production. Pure and simple. I do this because once you see it and you understand it, you have two choices in life. You can go back to sleep or you can stand and spread the message. I chose to spread the message. I lost friends because of it. The job I was at gave me a choice. You stay and you work or you quit your YouTube stuff. I chose to leave the company. These changes that are coming are real, and they're going to do all they can to try to censor the message and try to reduce the spreadability of the causations of why it's happening, where it's happening, what's really causing it. Because you have to realize for 40 years, they've told you CO2, it's going to get hotter, They talked about crop losses, they talked about climate changing, but they didn't really tell you in earnest the reset button that accompanies these events. They're trying to blame it on CO2, but it's the same outcome. Massive crop yield losses across the planet. Now, this year alone, we saw, 10% reduction in wheat across so far? Global yields, 10%. That's incredible. Put in black cover Economist magazine in DuckDuckGo to take a look, see who other was interpreting what did the black cover mean. So Deagle.com, this is a forecasting website that uses 21 different think tanks, and they come together with an analysis of 5 years in the future, what the country will be population-wise and what the country will be economic-wise, and then they rank it. If you're not familiar with that site, you might want to go check it out. It's called Deagle, DEAGLE.com. Now, it's a military contractor weapons site in the front. Now, you can't find that information about the population forecast in the front page. If you go to Deagle.com, you're not going to find it. You have to go to a search engine and put in Deagle.com country statistics. And then you'll find the back page to come in there because they don't put it publicly on their front page. So you'll have to come in the back way looking for the country statistics. Other interpretations of the black cover were a blackout in terms of electricity as well as communication. And that kind of falls back into my Grand Solar Minimum. Reduction of communication. Where do you think this weather information is going to be coming from next? That's why I wanted to start the newsletter. I wanted to bring it out. So if lines of communication go down, there's alternatives. Also, for those of you listening, I'm also just starting to load onto Brighteon, Real.video, Mike Adams' site. Finally got in there. Put up 6 videos yesterday. I'm up on BitChute as well. In any war situation, you need to cut the lines of communication. That is the first thing that's done. They take control of the airports, transportation, rail lines, etc., and then they cut communication so people cannot spread messages of where troops are moving, where things are happening. This is very much going to be the same exact thing when food prices and food riots and these types of things are happening. Have you taken a look over at Egypt? The police are in there to raid warehouses of potatoes because the potato sellers are holding some stock because the prices are getting higher and they're just business people. They want to get a higher price for their potatoes. Government says they're causing artificial shortages, and what's happening is the market's being priced out for the average citizen. Literally, price of potatoes in Egypt is beyond the cost of 75% of the population at the moment, and it's a staple. You got to realize that. But behind the scenes there, they're not really telling you that across the world, the global potato harvest is down something like 40%, and the size of the potatoes is 1/3 smaller. And there are numerous instances. Just go over into Europe, like Germany is another one, UK is another one, Ireland another one. There's just, look at the potato statistics coming out. India as well. Everything is smaller this year, and the yield has been substantially reduced. Now, instead of coming out and talking about that and telling the citizens in Egypt what's really happening, the scapegoat is, hey, it's the wholesalers withholding your food and they're trying to drive the price. But the real reason is behind that, the Grand Solar Minimum and the weather changes we're seeing with the jet streams getting out of flow. You see what the censorship's already coming, the scapegoating is already here. And let's go over to the Philippines. Duterte is doing the exact same thing with the rice traders, saying that I'm going to send in the military and I'm going to force you to sell it at this price, which was 2 weeks ago price, Rice has already gone up almost double, and they're like, well, we're going to force you to take this price, or we're going to put you in jail, and we're going to confiscate your rice. Which choice do you want? Choice A, you stay in business, you stay out of jail, and you give us that rice for half price, and we're going to confiscate it and go sell it on the street, or whatever they do. Maybe they'll take it for the military. Who knows? Or B, you go to jail and you lose everything. Preparedness might be a kind of a key takeaway from this whole thing. Because if these underdeveloped economies are using this tactic already to blame the sellers of the food, not the actual crop losses in nature. Because think about the Philippines' weather patterns over this last year. They've had 3 major typhoons roll right over the middle of the rice-growing region on Luzon Island. So the Philippines lost an enormous amount of its rice production this year. I think they were down something like 22, 23% of the entire rice production for the country. And then again, instead of talking about weather and trying to have the citizens mobilized to, grow some of their own food and get more self-sufficient, they're blaming it on the rice traders, saying, hey, they're withholding and they're driving the price. Whoa, talk about putting the blinders on and creating a distraction. This is the kind of stuff that's happening at the moment. Think about when it amplifies 20 times larger than it is. and it's encompassing 20 times more countries. Indonesia, same thing. They were trying to import 2 million more tons of rice. Oh, sorry, that's 200 million tons to try to get ready for the rice shortages here. So what is it with Indonesia trying to bring their stockpiles up in rice too, but they can't find it on the world market? There's just not enough because India is down and so many places are down this year. Global rice yields are down. But Indonesia is scraping for more because they want to get ready for something they see something in the future. I have a few friends down in Indonesia, a great country, by the way. Great people, amazingly friendly people. I haven't really had any bad experiences in Indonesia, just all positivity. You know, what you see on the news in terms of what's going on religiously and really what happens on the ground is two entirely different things. Never been accosted. Everybody, time I was in trouble or lost, people would always help. But my friends down there are telling me, hey, same thing. It's super rainy and way below normal temperatures, and actually it hailed down there, which is a super rare event. They never have hail down there, apparently. Some people are saying it's the first time ever that hail has been recorded in Indonesia. And I said, well, that's kind of hard to believe that it'd be the first time ever, but at least around their circle of people, it's the first time ever that they knew about hail coming down in Indo. So the weather changes are very pronounced across everywhere in Asia. They're very pronounced across almost every place on the planet at the moment. A couple quickies until I get back into that point. Namibia, I'm working on this story right now. Namibian river starts flowing after 80 years of drought. Now, we don't know the flow levels 80 years ago. They didn't have any pictures. I couldn't find any. But this is right at the very edge of where all the huge sand dunes start, right before they get to the coast of Namibia, about 200 miles inland. Massive flooding. I mean, massive flooding. You should see the pictures of the water going down the gorges. Oh my gosh, do not be stuck in there. That is terrifying flash flooding in one of the driest places on the planet. Same thing's happening in the northern Sahel, where all the Chinese are investing all their money. Rail lines out to the terminus of what were mega lakes back 7,000 years ago. And China's building out to the edge of these lakes. So see, the Chinese know something about this. They have longer records for duration of what climate cycles were, going back thousands of years. So Chinese obviously knows we're going to repeat not a 400-year cycle, but something in the multi-thousand-year cycle. And I'm starting to incline toward the 3,600-year event myself. I'm not really talking about that too much, but I really would like to get into it more as I progress with the channel, that I think that me calling a 400-year Maunder minimum type cooling is way too conservative. I think what's happening is we're going to repeat something in the 3,600-year event timeline.
And if you thought changes like these were limited to today's world, the fate of Rome, climate, disease, and the end of an empire. This book is a sweeping new history of how climate change and disease helped bring down the Roman Empire. An interweaving grand historical narrative with climate science, the fate of Rome was decided not by emperors, soldiers, and barbarians, but also volcanic eruptions, solar cycles, climate instability, and devastating viruses. From Rome's pinnacle in the 2nd century, when the empire seemed invincible as a superpower, to its unraveling by the 7th century, when Rome was politically fragmented and resource depleted. Empire could no longer withstand the combined challenges of a grand solar minimum and recurrent outbreaks of bubonic plague. And if you want to support this broadcast, click the link below in the description box to The Fate of Rome, Climate, Disease, and the End of an Empire, available in both paperback and Kindle versions. Your clicks keep this broadcast on air. Thanks for the support.
Which makes sense why governments are acting the way they do, why they're actively trying to set up and have set up police state globally. That's just to control the population as the food prices, the food riots start. Awesome. But they're really trying to set it up because this is a full reset, and what comes out at the end, it's more like a war situation. They're going to need to control lines of communication. And currently it's done through social media. So the purge that's happening, the distraction is that they're trying to censor the right conservative voices off of social, at least in the United States. Now, there's a lot of political censorship going on globally as well. It's not just in the U.S., believe it or not. So the more research I'm doing on political censorship that's happening globally, they're breaking it down currently into several different types of, let's say, why the political censorship or control of narrative is happening. So around the world currently, it's broken down into imposed traditional social values. So they're censoring media, so there's no porn or there's no talk of breaking open norms that would disrupt a society. Examples would be Oman and Sudan, and actually Singapore of all places. That's censored to conserve traditional social values. But again, that would also encompass to a very light extent, places like Pakistan, Thailand, Ethiopia, Syria, South Korea, as well as in that list. So when you think about it, it's not just oppressive regimes that are censoring around the world. I mean, Vietnam and Myanmar as well. They're censoring to impose a closed loop of traditional social values. But then you have this whole other sector there censoring to keep political stability. And these are places that are barely holding on a thread anywhere, like Azerbaijan and Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, obviously North Korea and China, these types of Iran, more oppressive regimes, etc. But then you got a whole narrative over here of censorship to maintain national security. And that also includes in this Cuba and India, Morocco, Russia, Turkey. But then when you overlap all of these different reasons why the internet censorship is going on, you get the sweet spot where you got all these three idealists or ideologies overlapping as to why they're using censorship for which portion of the society or whatever it is. But you overlap these and you get that societal value intactness, political stability intact, and national security intact. And you get a list of 10. North Korea, China, Eritrea, that's North Africa, right next to Ethiopia. They're breakaway. So Eritrea used to be part of Ethiopia, broke away. It's its own independent nation. So those number 3 and 4 are in the same exact area. Saudi Arabia, Iran, Syria, Tunisia, Vietnam, and Myanmar. So that's all in the sweet spot there. Now, the United States is not on this list anywhere, but it definitely should be. In terms of what's going on with the censorship across all the social media at the moment, U.S. needs to be on this list. Absolutely, unequivocally, and I don't know why it's not. Because they say it's the freest country in the world, etc. Yet how are they allowed to run roughshod and be able to just continue censoring voices across the media? Social media, that is. The changes in the weather that are happening too. Now these signals are all over the place. If you're even 1/5 of 1/8 of half of an eyelid open, you're going to see some unusual events occurring at this moment. Now, I'll come back to the peer-reviewed research from Valentina Zarkova, Popov, Shepard, and Zarkov. Their work of talking about magnetic waves in the sun, double dynamo, and these canceling effects that the waves have. What was forecast, a massive 4x increase in extreme weather of what we've seen over the last, or if you want to say, just 2018. So think about, just go back in your memory bank for a few moments here and think about all the extreme weather that you've ever read about 2018. Could be anything from like super strong hurricane, typhoon, massive floods, whatever, rain, wind, snow, ice, cold, heat. Could be anything. Now think about that uber extreme and these massive events you've seen. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. That's 1 unit of change. Another thing, we're just going to boil it down to a number. That's 1 unit of change of everything you can remember in your conscious waking memories of extreme weather. And we'll add that, it's one unit. Well, as we progress into 2020, it's going to be a 4x increase over what you've seen in extreme weather. So as I was stating before, about 3-4 months ago, we started to see 2 months worth of rain in a day. And then it was 6 months of worth of rain in a day. And then now it's 6 months worth of rain in 3 hours. And as moving forward, I was saying the next trigger will be, you're going to see a year of rain in a day, not even months or half a year. You're going to see a full year of rain in a day somewhere. And that'll be a clue that the uptick in the extreme uptick is really in play and it's really happening. Well, then we get Qatar, a super dry spot on the planet that had a year's worth of rain in a day. Now, a lot of people will come out and say, well, they only got, 3 inches of rain and they only get 3 inches of rain for the whole year. So how can you say that's an extreme event? They got 3 inches of rain, big deal. Well, when you look at the images and the cars are completely flooded or literally up to the roofs because none of their drainage systems could handle the runoff, and it's a year's worth of rain. See, they don't get it. They say, well, it's only 3 inches. It's a year's worth of rain in a day, an event. It doesn't matter. Now, what I'm predicting also is coming up in 2020 and 21. is going to be a decade of rain in a day. A decade worth of snowfall in a single storm. If they're talking about a 4x increase going in through 2019 compared to what we've seen in the extreme of the extreme through 2018, 2020 and 21 uptick again after 2019, up to 6x. So let that sink in for a moment. Like these changes we're seeing, our weather patterns are not stable. They're really starting to completely flow out of flow until they're going to readjust somewhere around maybe 2023, 2025. But this would be the most tumultuous time in the weather because everything is kind of moving into its new place and it's colliding with what was there existing now. So you're going to get the most mix-ups in the weather for these next 3 years. That would be expected as new weather patterns emerge, where everything's got to readjust around the planet. Weakening magnetosphere, it'll go completely loose and weak for the next 15 years or so, and our jet streams and cloud bands and cloud patterns and cloud cells, they're all going to move into new places, and then they're going to stick there for a while. Once they readjust, they'll be readjusted to the new climate patterns. But until that time happens, we are going to see some of the most incredible events ever recorded in human history coming up here next year. And at the end of this year, but truly by the end of next year and into 2020, it's unthinkable. The cosmic rays are increasing, which is a whole nother outlier there because it's creating more cloud cover. This is the whole X factor here. The cosmic rays creating more cloud cover. If you just take the simple fact of jet streams moving and cloud cells moving, that's going to create the weather you're seeing now. That's like once, a whole year worth of rain in a day because things are colliding on each other and the cloud layers are overlapping on each other. So this is why you're getting those atmospheric compression events. You're getting the ring out of the skies, literally. That would be expected just with the movement of wind and moisture around the planet. But then we're adding in a whole nother factor here. These cosmic rays, galactic cosmic rays, that create more cloud cover. So in addition to all regular clouds moving in different places and moisture, now you're going to have even more clouds created because of cosmic rays. Now they don't know the level of creation of these clouds. Will it add an extra 15% cloud cover and moisture to the atmosphere? Will there be that much more cloud nucleation where evaporation from the oceans will cause 15-20% more clouds on the planet? This is the unknown as we step into 2020 and 21. Now back to the 2019 Economist magazine all-black cover. What's the message that the elitists are trying to say around the world? They have to broadcast their moves. That's part of it. They have to broadcast their moves. This black cover, how does it twist into all of the weather changes and the food pricing that we're seeing? Because again, if you're on the economic side of it, and YouTube and Google and their merry bunch of digital marauders are also taking down economic channels and platforms that are discussing economics. One that would come to mind right away, SGT Report. Sean over there had his channel taken down, but he just discusses economy mixed with politics and news stories driving economy. He does great analysis, but almost everywhere across any type of economic forums, channels, they're all talking about a massive decline.
It's TrueLeafMarket.com. I really want to talk about growing your own food, which will be a necessity moving forward. There's so many ways that we can go about growing different types of vegetables that we're going to need. Microgreens are incredibly nutritious. They're super fast to grow. In less than a week, you can have something that you can eat. Also, sprouts. We can get those a little bit taller, a little more dense, a little bit larger volume on the vegetation mass coming off of there. So how do you know what kind of sprouts to grow? How about wheatgrass or herbs? What about different types of herbs that we can add to our foods? Now, what I just described to you, there's a full range of starter guides there at TrueLeafMarket.com for you to take a look at. Even if it's just for your own knowledge and you don't purchase something from them, at least get the information so you know how to grow microgreens, you know how to grow sprouts, you understand what some of the herbs are for. TrueLeafMarket.com. Use the link below and give yourself the gift of organic and heirloom seeds.
And if you look at what's happening also in Zero Hedge, if you read that website, and even just in the general economic news, there is a massive downturn coming. 2008 and 9 is going to be super light comparatively. And you got to think about the food prices too. And you throw in doubling food prices inside all this mix. So a lot of money is going to get siphoned out into the food economy. So don't come at this with fear. Look at it as a giant opportunity. If you know how this is the hugest opportunity in human history. If you know how the money is going to move from one part of the economy into another part of the economy, there's substantial gains to be made. Like personally myself, this is not financial advice, but I'm holding futures contracts out at 2020 delivery for hard red winter wheat, rye, and heavy number 1 oats. So I predict that these commodities are going to get crushed and the prices of them are going to double or more. That's my own thing, and I see that coming. Now, I can take physical delivery of that. See, that's another whole option using futures trading and contracts. You can take physical delivery. So imagine that. If the price gets so high that people can't really afford it, but you're able to take the physical delivery of the goods and you can arrange shipping, you could take the physical delivery of that good. Now, the metals markets, they're talking about not enough physical delivery, that the London Metal Exchange, the LME, is tons and tons below what the outflows are for people requesting physical metals out of their accounts. Well, something like 7 tons in and 13 tons in requests. So right now there's already a break in the system of paper gold versus physical because the LME can't supply its actual physical demand on delivery at the moment for gold. So the physical in the future, to have that option, is also going to be something to think about. Right now, the hard red winter wheat has $1 to $1.70, depending on the buyer, premium per bushel of what it's really selling on in the spot market. Because people can't get enough of the physical, so they're willing to pay more for it if you can get it delivered to them. So my personal opinion is, again, going into the ag futures market, to take delivery of that and then even get a higher price to on-sell it physically to somewhere else after delivery. Because once you take delivery, it's going to be at point A. And once you get it into that rail car, you can move it onward because somebody else will arrange the shipping for sure. They will bend over backwards to make sure that gets shipped to their destination. They'll take care of all the logistics on that as long as you can supply it.
This video is brought to you by our friends at TrueLeafMarket.com. Heirloom and organic seeds for any grow zone on our planet.